In episode 120 of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, we get into failure, how you can snap back, learn something, and ensure you don't fail a second time. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness? The 40 Plus Fitness podcast is here for you. I'm your host, Alan Meisner. I'm an NSAM certified personal trainer with a specialization in corrective exercise and fitness nutrition. Let me be your coach as you find your way on your health and fitness journey. All right, let's go. This episode is sponsored by the Forever Fitness Program. That's the personal training program that I developed to help clients just like you rediscover their health and fitness. If you're ready to make a change, if you're ready to step forward and do something good for yourself to be a better you tomorrow, I'd encourage you to go over to forever.fitness. There you can join the mailing list so you'll be the first to know. The course is only going to be open for a limited amount of time, so I'd encourage you to go get on the list so you'll be one of the first to sign up. I'll see you there. So we're entering a holiday weekend here in the United States, the 4th of July, our Independence Day. And this is a holiday that's typically kicked off with some food, cooking outside, barbecue, beer, pies, cobblers, ice cream. It's an eating holiday, like most holidays in the United States. But this one tends to have some particularly bad foods involved with it when you start talking about the processed meats and processed foods. And then again, the beer and the Cokes and everything else that tends to kind of come along with this type of holiday. So the question I want to ask you is, if you're listening to this after that holiday weekend, did you mess up a little bit? Did you make a mistake? Did you fail? When we fail in business, we tend to look at that as a great opportunity for us to learn something. And so that's really what I want to try to do today is kind of talk about the failures that we have with our eating, with our exercising, and what that can teach us about ourselves and how we can use that failure as an opportunity to make sure that it doesn't happen going forward. Typically when we fail, it's based on a basic habit. And so if the habit is for a certain holiday or certain day or certain event or certain thing, you end up with bad food, that is a trigger. That event is effectively the trigger. So if you had a bad weekend, I want you to look at what this weekend was, why you think you had that bad weekend, and understand what that trigger is. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to deal with triggers later. So the first thing we want to do is we want to understand the trigger. And then what we see is that trigger spurs an action. And so maybe it's they light up the grill and they get that going. There's an ice chest open on the deck and they're grilling. You can smell the barbecue flavor. You can smell it and you know what it's going to taste like. You know it's going to taste good. Someone hands you a beer, you sit down, you're going to fix your plate, and everything that's there, the potato chips, potato salad, all the foods that you have avoided so far are all right there in front of you. And it's a social event, so you don't want to be awkward. You've got the trigger. And the action is then that you're going to fix yourself a plate of food that you really don't want. But this is more of just an addiction type craving, and we'll get into that as well. So the reward is that, well, quite frankly, we grew up this way. It feels good to eat those foods because that's what our body's been accustomed to. So we use the food to affect emotions, to affect how we feel, affect how things are going. So the food kind of triggers a lot of different things, a lot of reward sensations for us while we're eating that food. Sitting there eating through a hot dog while you're, going through the week, the time talking to your family, maybe your grandmother, your family members, whatever's going on in your life, you're having this great moment, this great opportunity. And that reward, the event and the reward and the food, all of that is kind of blending together. And because this is something that we've done before, and it's familiar to us, we now kind of crave that. We start kind of looking forward maybe to this holiday that we're going to go do this thing with the family and the barbecue and everything and get to see this and do that and eat this and eat that. So all that comes down to once you have that craving, you effectively now have a form of an addiction. Now, this is not like an addiction where you can say, oh, well, now I'm like on cocaine or heroin or whatnot. But it's still a very, very, very intense situation, very, very, very intense sensation. So what we want to try to do is figure out what are some things that we can do to avoid this scenario, to break this cycle. Because this cycle will just continue to repeat until we do something mentally and physically, potentially, to make this not happen again. So the first one and the easiest way to break this chain is to get rid of the trigger, to not have the trigger. Now, that works for a lot of things. It's like I know that if I walk by the snack machine, I'm going to want one of the snacks. That's the trigger, seeing the snacks, beautiful colors and knowing what all those things taste like. That's the trigger when I'm walking by the snack machine. So what I do, I don't walk by the snack machine. I walk the other way around. That's one way that you can avoid the trigger. Now, we just had a holiday. You can't tell the family, no, I don't want to go because there's only going to be bad food. So that's a trigger you might not be able to socially avoid. But you need to know that the first and easiest way to break this cycle is to basically break the cycle by avoiding the trigger. Okay. Now, some other things that we can do in this whole situation is then we can change the action. So we avoid the trigger or we change the action. Now, what's change the action? So maybe what I do is I go and prepare the meal that I'm going to want to eat, some things that I'll enjoy eating. Maybe I go and I get a nice salmon fillet and I go and I buy a salad and, I have the dressings and things already pre-made, ready to go, sitting in a cooler. I have the drinks that I'm going to want to drink with me, maybe some kombucha. So I have myself prepared. I planned. So if I can't avoid the trigger, then I need to go ahead and make a plan to do something else, to do a different action the next time I feel that trigger. So I start smelling what's on the grill. I know that that's going to spur me to want to eat what's on the grill. So I ask them to clear me out a little bitty space so I can put my salmon fillet on there and I'm good to go. Now, when you're doing this type of stuff, a lot of times some of the things that kind of push you through this cycle a little bit, and I want to talk about them a little bit, is that there are going to be some things that will push you through the cycle faster, and there are things that can help pull you out of the cycle. Now, the ones that will push you into the cycle are kind of what I call haters. And I don't mean that in a metaphorical perspective that they hate you. It's just they're doing things that are jeopardizing your ability to break the cycle. So it's kind of, oh, come on, it's just one day. Or, oh, it's just eat a little bit of the potato salad. Aunt Sally's going to be upset if you don't try her potato salad. You're going to get some of that. And you're going to get some individuals that are questioning why you've brought your own food. And you don't need to feel socially responsible for that. I mean, you're doing something for yourself. You're doing something for your own health, and you don't really need to be apologetic for it. You're doing this for you, not for them, not around them, not to spite them. You're doing this for yourself, and that's your only reason, and you don't really have to answer to them as far as why you're doing what you're doing, as long as you know what you're doing is for a better you. Okay, what's going to help pull you out of the cycle are anchors. So maybe there's another family member that's in a similar situation as you, and they want to also avoid the bad food. So now having someone else that's come in and joined you in you guys preparing a meal or bringing your own food, now it's a little less conspicuous. Now it's going to be more normal, I guess, for a lack of a better word, because there's more people engaged doing it. In fact, you might actually change some of the people that you typically deal with at this party or at this event, because they're now going to be thinking about it next year, potentially. But, don't get your hopes up. But that's always out there. So understand who might be the ones that are going to push you to do things that you don't want to do, and find out who are those individuals that are going to support you while you're trying to do this type of thing. And build those relationships. Work with that as you approach these types of situations. A holiday is easy from a trigger perspective because you know what that day entails. You plan for it days in advance. You have an opportunity to be ready. Sometimes you don't have time to deal with a trigger, so planning becomes a little bit more difficult, but it's not impossible. You just have to really kind of wrap your mind and think about what you're trying to accomplish when you're trying to break a habit, okay? So you want to go ahead and try to effectively swap out the action. And I talked about bringing better food, and I'll actually give you a real life example of what I've done. Each year, my mother will kind of host all the kids to come to her house for Thanksgiving. And for years, I'd go and I'd eat, and I'd eat whatever they brought and whatever everybody was making, and it tended to be pies and sweet this and sweet that, and sugar on that, cream on that, bad cheese on that, just nothing that I would say was whole food, not processed. Everything was processed at some level. So what I started doing about 7 or 8 years ago, about when I really started thinking about my health, is I bought a really good turkey. And this was a pasture-raised turkey that was, well cared for. kind of the cream of the crop as far as turkeys go. And I asked my mom, I said, can I prepare the turkey? I'll have it shipped to your house. It'll arrive a day before I do. Just, put it in the fridge. I'll come check in it the day I arrive, and then I'll cook the turkey. And I did that. And then I also got in the habit of going by the grocery when she was doing her grocery shopping a day or two before Thanksgiving, and effectively picking up some vegetables and things that I knew that I would enjoy. And I told her, I'll prepare these ahead of time while I'm working on the turkey, and I'll be out of your way. And so now I fill the vast majority of my plate with the turkey and these vegetables that I've bought. And then I may sample a little bit of those other little things, but I'm getting such a small amount of them that it's really negligible. It's just a taste and just a part of making me part of walking across the table with everybody and being a part of the family. Now, that's one thing that I did. Now, another thing I did around the same time is I started encouraging the grandkids to start coming out, and basically start playing football. And so we'd get a touch football game together. And now some of my siblings will get involved, other family members will get involved. And they're getting a little bit older. So now the kids are all adults. So it's a little bit more running around than it was when we first started playing. But I only tell you that story because there is an opportunity here for you to change the behavior of others. So that might be the only exercise that some of my family members really get most of the year, because we all want to get out there and play football together. So again, I'm only telling the story because there is an opportunity for you to affect the trigger when you can. And when you can't, then there's an opportunity for you to change the action. You really have to break down your habits that way so that you'll know how to address each one. Okay? So to kind of summarize what I'm talking about here, this really just kind of comes down to starting to get to know yourself and then get to know the others around you. Watch what they are doing, understand how they're going to affect this cycle with you, and then see what's going on with them. See what cycles are generating in their lives that are also creating some of these feedback patterns for them. And then finally, I want to close on this. If you fail, if you slip, don't beat yourself up. It's just one day. And the reality of all this is you haven't failed unless you quit. So if you have a bad day or a bad weekend or a bad week or a bad month, that's a point in time. Looking back at it and beating yourself up over it isn't going to change that period of time. You can't. It's done. All you can change is what you do next. So if you'll dust yourself off and just say, hey, I'm back on the path, and this is what I want for myself. And I slipped up. I know when I slipped up. I'm going to go back and analyze it enough to know what the trigger and what the action was. Say, okay, now next time I'm ready. Next time I won't fail. Next time I'll be prepared. Next time I'll avoid the trigger, or next time I will change the action. I hope you learned something valuable today. Failure is not failure unless you quit. This episode's open question: have you had a fail recently? What strategy are you using to prevent it from reoccurring? At older.fitness/group, you can join us there and share. I'd love to learn from you what lessons you've learned about yourself and how you can overcome failure, how you can overcome habits, bad habits particularly, in the future. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, we talk with Teresa Larson on her book, Warrior. You'll definitely see strength in a different light after this. Have a happy and healthy day.